The early queen attack, that is e4, e5 and queen to h5, is a very tricky, aggressive, yet personally very disrespectful opening, and that's why it is important for you to make sure that your opponent does not do this mischief again against you. Well, on the YouTube, there are many passive systems start with knight to c6, which I personally think is a very timid way to respond. What I really want is meet fire with the fire, and that's why in this video you are going to witness one of the most aggressive way to handle this variation by playing Kiddie counter gambit starting with knight to f6. So basically you are saying white, okay buddy, go ahead, take that pawn. And of course, when white take it, we are going to play bishop to e7. And now you can see the idea behind this wonderful gambit. We get a very fast development of our pieces. And the most important part is you get a tremendous attacking position in the opening stage that many games finish as early as you can dream of. Okay, white has basically 5 different choices as per the database, and let's see each by turn to find out what we are going to do about it. So number 1, bishop to c4, the top choice. Well, against all these moves, the planning of the campaign from the black side is so simple, and one can easily remember this. Number 1, what you want to do is you castle, and then if allowed you are going to play d5. And the second stage is if white somehow prevent our d5 idea, then we are going to meet this with either knight to c6 or rook e8, and in both the cases a tremendous fun and attacking position. So let's see everything live in action. Okay, first black castles, and again as per the database there are 3 choices. Amongst them, number 1 is d3. You know what to do. Yup. Here the d5 is not possible, so what we are going to do? First we will play knight to c6 attacking the queen, and once she moved to the g3 square, we are going to lash out now with the move d5. After pawn takes d5, here comes the first important moment, guys, where you are going to see a high profile trap at the opening stage starting with knight to d4. Okay, bishop to b3, only way to stop the fork. Now you play rook to e8, trying to get a discover check. So more or less white has to block it. Now they cannot block with the knight because after bishop to d6 that knight indeed falls. So as per the database, the majority of the games continue with bishop to e3, whereupon here comes the simple move bishop d6. Doesn't matter wherever the queen goes, let's say g5, h6 and h4. Finally the sting in the table released with knight to f5, which forced queen to go away from the king side. And now, yup, you guessed it, knight takes e3, pawn takes e3, rook takes e3, and funny enough white has to move the king, but most of the people are going to play knight to e2, saying hang on, what can be wrong with this? Well, here is the answer. That knight is simply a goner. You can work it out by yourself. I'm showing you right now. Queen e7, knight to c3, and after bishop g4, goodbye that knight at just 15 moves of the game. Okay, the second most popular choice here is knight to f3. Again, we cannot play d5, so what we supposed to do? Yup, knight to c6, attack the queen. Now queen has to stay in protection of e4, so for example, if she goes to g3, then we can simply take on e4. And not only we are materially up, but this position is so good, as you can see from the engine evolution. So that's not a good idea. The correct move is queen to f4. But after this, now we can play the move d5. And after pawn takes d5, white is just one move away from the castle. But of course, we are not going to give that time. And yet another trap introduced from this position, and that is bishop to d6, queen to h4, and now this rook check forces the bishop back on e2, whereupon another threat, knight to b4, knight to a3, and can you find the deciding blow? I hope you find the easiest move on the board, rook to e4, and after queen to g5 and the move at 6. Believe it or not, but at just 11th move of the game, we have trapped down the white sweetie. Isn't that wonderful? The third move white can try over here is queen to g3, but personally I don't think so this is a right option because black can simply take on e4, and database top choice is queen g4, which I can't believe, as after d5 basically you are winning a piece. So most accurate is queen to f3, but after this we can simply play d5, and one of my recent games shows the power of this position. My opponent, who is a 2100 plus rated, continue with bishop to d3, attack my knight, but as a kiddie counter gambit player you know what is coming. Yup, knight to c6, just concentrating on development. My opponent took on e4 twice, get the pawn advantage, but I'm really happy if he's going to open the e file. So the next move is very obvious, rook to e8, and he has to block the e file, so knight to e2, what else? But here comes the simple idea, and that is bishop to g5, lining up on the e file. Well, of course you can't go queen f3 because of knight to d4 and the knight is goner, so that is a bad idea. And in the game my opponent plays probably the strongest move, queen a4, but this again fails due to the simple tactic, and that is b5. Of course you can't take it because of knight d4, and finally when the queen has been ejected from the 4th rank, here comes the winning move, knight to d4, winning the piece. The second top move from the database is d3, and of course we are going to respond with castle, and now white has few choices. Now again queen g3, I don't like it because of the move d5, and this trap occurs so many times in this line, so just watch out for it. It doesn't matter whether white continue with e5 or bishop to h6. Let's say bishop to h6 looks very natural, right? Well, here comes the winning move, knight to g4, attacking the bishop, and once the bishop moves, did you see the deciding blow? Yup, absolutely right if you find the move bishop to h4, which more or less finished the white on the spot because his king has to move, and then we can play this simple move, pawn takes e4, which literally open up the lines against the white king. In fact, in Lee chess there is a game of a grandmaster who crushed his lower rank opponent in style. White choose here pawn takes e4, and black just keep creating threats with knight to c6, so c3, and there comes knight e5 attacking the queen. Those knights are very dangerous, so white took it, but after knight takes e5, white queen has no ideal square, so he decided to take on f2, which is a losing blunder, and I hope you find the simple continuation. Pause the video if you need more time, I'm showing you right now. First bishop to g4, knight to f3, now you just take on f3, and after pawn takes, the lovely finish, queen check, king e1, and knight captures f3, which forces white to give up the queen, and in fact the game. Well, same goes for the move e5 because here we can play knight g4, and even you can see from the database people had played the move h3 which run into this bishop h4, queen goes somewhere, and then we take on f2 with a huge advantage. So nope, queen g3 is not a good idea by white camp. Okay, how about bishop to e2, which looks very natural. Now you're stopping knight to g4. So what black has to do about it? Well, the first move is obvious. You are going to play d5 as we get the chance. And after queen to g3, which has now threat of bishop to h6, the way we can meet is with this cold-blooded move, pawn takes e4. The idea is after bishop to h6, of course we cannot play knight g4, but there is another route for this knight, and that is knight to e8 defending on g7. Now majority of the games from the database continue with d captures e4, which I personally think is a big mistake, as after this black get a completely upper hand starting with bishop to h4. Queen has to go away from the g file, and now you guessed it, yup, just take this bishop, queen takes, and then we can even play bishop g5, and then at the end bishop to c1. Just look at this guy. Black is completely dominating the game. The third move white can try over here is bishop to g5. But I don't think so this bothers us because we can provoke the exchange by playing h6. And after bishop takes, there are double threats, so white has to play the only move, queen to b5. Whereupon we are going to lash out with this thematic move d5. Okay, white has two choices. Well, in the database, the majority of the games continue with e captures d5, which is in fact a big blunder, guys. And I wonder if you can find the tactical shot here. Did you see it? You are bang on target if you play the move queen to e8. What a move, which forces the queen exchange. And the whole point is when white block the check, we can play bishop takes b2 and get a healthy piece advantage. Now apart from e captures d5, white can also play knight to c3, planning to castle on the queen side, to whom I am going to recommend this simple plan, that is you play c6, queen b3, and now you play rook e8, forcing white to block the e file, whereupon after a5, yes indeed we are a pawn down, but our steamroller on the queen sides are coming thick and fast. And most importantly, if you look at the engine evaluation, it says black is really rocking at this point.